Hello, welcome back to my garden. Today, I'm going to be doing something that was completely unexpected because yesterday, when I wound up going into town, me and my wife stopped at Lowe's. She was looking for a pot for amaryllis to put inside the house for Christmas, and I was looking for various things for the potting shed, which I'll be placing my first order for lumber today or tomorrow, very shortly here. What I did pick up was paint, and I picked up framing screws and a few other things like deck screws. And while I was wandering around Lowe's, wound up running into some clearance bulbs. Did not intend to buy or plant any bulbs this year because I was saving up all my pennies for the big winter project. But I saw these daffodils. They had a few other things like tulips, but tulips don't do well here. Daffodils will naturalize here in growing zone 8B, Eastern North Carolina. I looked at the price and they were $16, but half off is $8. And there's 25 in a bag. That's a steal as far as I'm concerned. I can't think of a better deal. And we're going to plant up some daffodils, come up late winter, early spring for me here in Eastern North Carolina. The variety I got, the only variety they really had left, was King Alfred. It looks very much like Dutch Master, maybe a lighter color. So I got myself a bag. It's 25 bulbs. This is what we're going to plant up today. And the first thing I'm going to do is plant up this pot here because why not? This pot is going to go to the back deck so that when hopefully the daffodils start coming up in late winter, early spring, there's something lovely for me to look out outside my back door. I'm going to put 4 in here. I could stuff it with more, but why? If you've never planted bulbs before, spring flowering bulbs, tulips, daffodils, alliums, give it a whirl. Give it a try. It's probably one of the easiest gardening things you could possibly do. Back to the whole planting thing. If you've never planted a bulb before, general rule of thumb is plant it twice the depth of the bulb. So if this bulb is, let's say, 2 inches, I want to plant this at least 6 inches down. 4 to 6 inches. The deeper, the better, especially if you're in a wind-prone area, because the wind, once the foliage comes up, the wind will rock the plant, and that's no good for the plant. So I've already pushed these down about 2 inches into the pot here. I'm just going to put on some potting mix to top it all off. There we go. Just going to tap that down just a little bit. I'm going to label it because that's always important. And I'm going to put a little mulch on top just to help it retain. That's a giant piece of pine bark just to help it retain some moisture. But if we do get rain, the mulch will help retain that moisture. I am going to water this right now, and then I'll put it up on the deck. But if you guys grow daffodils, tulips, anything else in pots, please let me know in those comments. For the rest of these bulbs, because there should be 21 left. I just planted 4 in a pot, so there should be 21 left in here. Hopefully most, if not all of these, are good. Again, if you've never grown bulbs before, if you're an expert gardener and I say something wrong, please let me know in those comments below. But if you feel a bulb and it's squishy, that's no good. It's rotten. Throw it out. Your bulbs should all be pretty firm, just a little squeeze. And if it feels firm, you're good. So let's go around the garden now and plant some of these up. Because once again, I'm a fabulous YouTuber and I make no mistakes in creating videos. I had just planted a bunch of daffodils over here on this corner. And I was telling you that Hori Hori knife is my preferred tool of bulb planting. If I was going to be planting out into the lawn or other spaces where the soil is a little thicker or heavier, then what I would use is a bulb planter. Very simple. It's a round tube. You press it into the ground. When you pull it out, that first plug of dirt stays in there. Go to your next hole. Push down again. That first plug comes out. And then after you put the bulb into the first hole, you can take that first plug and push it in. Rinse and repeat. Another popular way of planting bulbs is augers. You guys have probably seen them on various channels like Garden Answer. So behind me over here, I did not have any daffodils come up by the corner. This year I had daffodils come up here, but nothing over here. So I think I'm going to try to plant some bulbs over here to try to, the whole idea is to have this whole area right here fill with bulbs in the spring. So on either side of the gate, there's a beautiful display of daffodils. I think I'm going to do one more over here. When planting bulbs, general rule of thumb, as I mentioned before, is planting them twice the depth, but also you want the pointy side up. Now I know not every bulb has a pointy side, so if you're new to gardening, you're going to want to look for the bottom. It's the easiest way. So if you have a perfectly spherical bulb, I think allium bulbs are pretty spherical. If you've never planted a bulb or grown allium before, it might be a little confusing. Always look for the flat bottom plate. I believe it's called a basal plate. Basal? I think that's what it's called. If I'm wrong, leave those comments below. But you want to look for the flat plate on the bottom. That's where the roots come out from. You want that downside. With daffodils here, real easy. real pointy side, and then you got a bulbous round end with a flat bottom. All right, I lost count of how many I did here, but hopefully it'll be enough for the springtime. There's a few other areas where I do want to plant some daffodils, so let's go do that now. Alrighty, here we are in the flower garden, and you can see some of my gladiolas here. Some of the leaves are still really hanging in there. The big frost or freeze that I was expecting didn't really happen. So if you're watching this for the first time, a couple of days ago, I think it was Monday or so, we were expecting a 34-degree night. So I'm like, we're going to get a frost easy. It's almost guaranteed. That didn't happen. I came out the next morning and there was no frost anywhere, and the air felt really dry. So I'm guessing that's why we didn't get a frost. This morning when I came out, there was a very, 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 very light frost on the grass. And the air felt a whole lot more damp, humid. So I'm guessing that's why we got the frost, because there was moisture in the air, and the temperature only got down to about 40. So, but you know, ground levels, microclimates, science, facts, blah, blah, blah. Here's a dahlia, and it really didn't seem to affect or bother the dahlia at all. It's been quite a few hours since the sun came up, and there's no freeze damage I see at all. Either way, I'm prattling. Let me get back to bulb planting. I have no daffodils here. In fact, this is kind of a blank spot. And in next year, I was probably going to plant something here, and I still may. But for the time being, I'm going to put some daffodils right here. Let's see, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. You can plant them however you want. It's your garden, you do it however you want. I try to plant in little clumps. So now I have a clump of 3 here because I want the remainder to go in a few other places. I'm just gonna leave this clump of 3, but if this was my only gardening area, then I would plant all, I don't know, I think there's like 8 more here. And this way I'd have a nice big clump of daffodils for the springtime. Again, you plant how you want to plant, but I would say at least 3 daffodils together. And then you could, you know, plant others elsewhere, which is what I intend on doing. Oh, and so I don't forget what I planted here come the springtime. I am going to throw a label here just to remind me that there's some King Alfreds here. Let me show you another label that I did last year. Right here, in this area right here, I had planted some Mount Everest alliums a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and they have been coming up for me pretty regularly the last couple of years, which is a good thing. So I made this more permanent tag right here to let me know that, hey, right in here, there's some Mount Everest alliums. Earlier in the spring, I planted a bunch of different Sweet Williams right in this front border here because my thought process was I'll have sort of like a, what do they call that? It's a bedding plant, right? A ground level bedding plant. And it'll just be this front row of beautiful colored flowers here. And then behind them, I'll have the snapdragons, and further back, I'll have something else. But unfortunately, the deer and the weather didn't cooperate. And I think I have maybe I think I may have one left. Right here where there should be some Sweet William, I am going to plant up some of the daffodils. This way, again, there's something here in the springtime, and it's not just a bare patch of earth. I keep looking over my shoulder. I'm watching Sophie. She's wandering around the orchard area. You know, another popular way of planting bulbs, and you want to plant out a whole bunch, you could dig yourself a trench. You know, it should be about 6 inches deep. You can make it as long as you want, and then you fill that trench with tulips, daffodils, whatever it is, and they always look nice. Laura from Garden Answer, she has done the trench method, but she didn't really enjoy it, I don't think. And this year, I think she just did plantings, much as I'm doing, but in a much larger scale, using her auger. So I got 4 here. I think that'll be a nice little clump if they all survive the winter and then come up in the springtime. It'll be a nice little clump right here. The snapdragons come up pretty early for me as well, and then there'll be the Mount Everest alliums, which will probably follow on behind them in early summer. See, I have 2 left. I'm not going to go plant 2 someplace else. What I will do, I'm going to plant the other 2 bulbs that I have right here. There's one over here right in the front. There we go. I will, of course, label. This way, hopefully I remember that the King Alfreds are planted here. I do have a bunch of the black labels like these for the other Dutch Master daffodils I planted throughout the garden. Again, just to remind me, not so much of the variety, but what I have planted in a certain area. And the black labels to me look a whole lot more attractive than the white plastic ones that I have here. Now, daffodils aren't the only things I do have planted here. I do have a couple others which I do want to mention. Right here, I have my Dutch irises. I believe this is the Apollo variety. Can't remember what that, I think it's a yellow color maybe. Either way, Dutch irises are now starting to push up here in my growing zone, which is pretty awesome. And then towards the back, I have grape hyacinth and another springtime flowering bulb. Right here in front, I have Lilac Wonder Wildflower Tulip. This is a wild tulip or a hybridized tulip, I believe. There's another name for it. This is the old tag from last year, but I know in this space right here, I will have these wild tulips popping up. I believe they're also called something else besides wild tulip or wildflower tulip. If you guys do, leave those comments below, but I know I'll have those coming up over here in the springtime. Here's a sign for some Dutch Master daffodils, and I believe there's some wild tulips right where my foot is, but unfortunately it seems I've lost the tag for that. So in the springtime, hopefully there'll be the Dutch Masters come up, and then there'll be some wild tulips. Here we are in another part of the flower bed. You can see I have this Gara here, but right over here I have a allium pushing up. That might be Purple Sensation, but in the back over here, I have Summer Drummers. So they're popping up now, which is really cool. So that's all 25 of those King Alfred bulbs planted out. 4 in a pot, and then the other 21 remaining planted throughout the flower garden and in front of the vegetable garden here. Combine that with a lot of the bulbs that I planted from last year, whether they be daffodils, all those wild tulips, and again, there's another name for those wild tulips, and I just can't think of them right now, and the Dutch irises. Next springtime should be a fantastic time of year. It should be very colorful and very wonderful. And one more thing before I wrap this video up, real briefly, you guys probably heard me mention it already several times, but if you haven't, there's the Epic Gardening Black Friday sale going on right now. They're offering up to 25% off on most of their merchandise, which is fabulous. If you use my link in the description below, or I'll try to put it on the screen here, you can save yourself an additional 5% off on your order. So that's up to 30% off. So if you're thinking about getting a birdie's bed, if you need more seed trays for next year, if you were thinking about getting somebody a gift of like a vertical planter for the holidays, now is a great time to go do that shopping. Use my code again to get yourself that 5% discount. So I do make a small commission on that, but at no cost to you guys. So it doesn't change the price to you guys. You get a huge savings discount. I get a small commission. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. This way you can follow along with whatever antics I have going on here in the garden. I was not intending on making a bulb planting video today. It just happened that way. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing next in the garden. There are so many things going on here and around the garden, including the future building of the potting shed, which will hopefully start next week. Stay tuned for that. With all that being said, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.